They don't hate you because you're cruel. They don't hate you because you're unkind. They hate you because your kindness reminds them of everything they are not. That is the psychology of envy. When you treat people with patience, when you offer compassion, when you show respect, it doesn't always inspire gratitude. Sometimes it awakens something darker. Your light exposes their shadows. Your calmness highlights their chaos. Your generosity reveals their selfishness. And instead of being thankful, they become resentful. Not because you hurt them, but because you remind them of what they lack. Psychologists call this upward comparison. It's when people compare themselves to those who seem to be better, stronger, or kinder. Instead of seeing it as motivation, they see it as an attack. Your existence feels like a challenge to their ego. They can't celebrate your kindness because it makes their flaws impossible to ignore. So what do? They lash out. They hate the reflection you hold up to them. This is why you'll notice something strange. Sometimes the more genuine you are, the more you will be disliked. Because when your heart is clean, it exposes those who live in bitterness. When you give freely, it exposes those who only know how to take. When you forgive easily, it exposes those who live chained to grudges. You become a walking reminder of their weaknesses, and they can't stand it. But here's the truth you need to remember. Their hatred is not about you. It is about them. Envy is self-directed pain. It is the discomfort of looking at someone and seeing the person you wish you could be. It is the ache of realizing that you are not there yet. And instead of doing the work to grow, the envious person chooses to destroy. Your kindness becomes a target because it makes their inner wounds bleed. Think of it this way. Imagine a room filled with people carrying heavy stones of insecurity. Then you walk in carrying nothing because you've learned to let go. To them, your empty hands look offensive. They think, who does this person think they are? How dare they walk free when I am chained? That's how envy works. It punishes the innocent simply for existing without the same burden. And it is not always strangers. Sometimes it is the people closest to you, family members, friends, co-workers. They see your growth, your calmness, your ability to stay kind when life is cruel, and instead of clapping, they feel threatened. Because if you can rise above pain, it proves that they too could have risen but didn't. Your success, your peace, your kindness, all of it exposes the excuses they hide behind. And the easiest way to defend their ego is to hate you. Now here's the part that requires strength. You cannot stop this. You cannot beg people to understand your heart. You cannot force people to see your intentions. You cannot convince an insecure mind to stop comparing. The more you try, the more drained you become. Instead, you must learn to accept this simple fact. Not everyone is capable of receiving kindness. Some people are so damaged that love feels like a threat. Some are so empty that compassion feels like judgment. Some are so prideful that forgiveness feels like humiliation. So what do? You remain kind anyway. You don't let their envy poison your spirit. You don't let their bitterness harden your heart. Because the moment you change who you are to fit their brokenness, you lose the very power that made them uncomfortable in the first place. And that power is your calm, your compassion, your silent strength. Understand this. Envy is not proof that you are doing something wrong. It is proof that you are doing something right. People do not envy the weak. They envy the strong. They do not envy the bitter. They envy the kind. They do not envy the lost. They envy the ones who found their path. So when you feel that resistance, when you sense that quiet hatred hiding behind fake smiles, take it as confirmation. You are walking a path that few are strong enough to walk. The psychology of envy teaches us a hard truth. Not everyone wants to see you rise. Some people want you to stay small so they can feel tall. Some want you to remain silent so they don't have to face their own noise. Some want you to break so their own brokenness feels less lonely. But here's your power. You don't have to shrink for anyone. The greatest revenge against envy is to keep shining, not with arrogance, not with noise, but with steady, unshaken kindness, the kind that does not waver when attacked, the kind that does not bend when mocked, the kind that does not fade when misunderstood, because envy feeds on weakness, but it starves in the face of resilience. So let them hate, let them whisper, let them project. None of it can touch the truth. You are not hated because you are cruel. You are hated because you are kind. And in a world filled with insecurity, fear, and broken egos, kindness is the most powerful form of strength. Carry it with pride, carry it with silence, and carry it knowing this: envy is just proof that your light is seen. They don't get angry because you hurt them. They get angry because your presence exposes how fragile their ego really is. That's the hidden truth about toxic people. They don't hate you for what you do. They hate you for what you represent. When you are calm, they see their chaos. When you are strong, they feel their weakness. When you are kind, they are reminded of how empty they are inside. Their ego is built like glass. It looks solid from the outside, but one small touch and it shatters. And every time you stand firm without playing their games, you threaten to break it. The toxic ego is a mask. It is not real confidence. It is not true strength. It is a desperate performance, stitched together with pride, insecurity, and fear. Deep down, they know it. Deep down, they feel small. But instead of fixing themselves, they build walls of arrogance. They shout to silence their own doubts. They try to control others to hide the fact that they cannot control themselves. And when someone like you enters the room, calm, kind, unshaken, you tear down the illusion without even trying. That's why they despise you. See, toxic people live on validation. They need others to feed their ego because it cannot feed itself. They seek approval through dominance, manipulation, and control. They want you to compete with them, to fight them, to seek their approval. But when you don't, when you stand in your own power quietly, you refuse to play their game. And nothing terrifies them more than someone who doesn't need their validation. Because without your participation, their ego starves. That's why kindness from strength is so powerful. Toxic people don't understand it. To them, kindness must come from weakness, from a need to please, from fear of rejection. But when you are kind without being dependent, it confuses them. They cannot control you. They cannot manipulate you. They cannot decide your value. So they twist your kindness into something else. They call it fake. They call it weakness. They mock it, attack it, and reject it. But none of that changes the truth. Their fragile ego simply cannot handle the presence of someone who doesn't break under pressure. Psychology calls this ego threat. When someone feels their self-image is being challenged, they respond with anger, hostility, or defensiveness. That's why toxic people lash out at those who remain composed. Your calmness tells their ego you are not in control. Your silence says, I don't need you to validate me. Your strength without aggression says, I am untouchable. And their fragile pride cannot take it. So they hate you not because you wronged them, but because you show them a version of themselves they cannot face. Think about this. A truly confident person doesn't need to attack others. A truly strong person doesn't need to dominate. But a fragile ego always does. It cannot stand equality. It needs superiority. And when it can't get it, it crumbles into resentment. That's why toxic people target those who are calm, kind, and secure, because you are proof that real strength exists without cruelty. You are proof that they are living a lie. And here lies your choice. You can shrink to protect their ego, or you can rise and let it shatter. Most people choose to shrink. They dim their light to avoid conflict. They pretend to be less so others don't feel insecure. They walk on eggshells to keep the fragile egos around them comfortable. But every time you shrink, you betray yourself. Every time you silence your kindness, your strength, your confidence, you lose the very power that makes you different. So refuse to shrink. Let them break. Let their fragile pride collapse under the weight of your authenticity. That is not cruelty, that is truth. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is hold your ground without apology. Because when you stand tall, you give silent permission to others to do the same. The fragile ego of toxic people is like a house of cards. It looks tall, but it cannot handle a single breath of real strength. And you are that breath. Every time you walk into a room with quiet confidence, you shake their foundation. Every time you show kindness without weakness, you knock at their walls. Every time you remain calm when they try to provoke you, you remind them they cannot control you. And in that reminder, their ego cracks. Here is what you must remember. Their reaction to you says nothing about your worth and everything about their weakness. Do not take their hatred personally. Do not let their attacks make you doubt yourself. When they despise you, it is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that you are winning, because you cannot threaten a fragile ego unless you are standing in real power. So carry your strength with silence. Carry your kindness with courage. Carry your confidence without apology. Let them misunderstand you. Let them project their fears onto you. Let them hate what they cannot control, because in the end, their fragile ego will collapse under its own weight, while you will still be standing, unshaken, untouched, unstoppable. They don't fear your words. They fear your silence. Because silence, in the mind of a toxic person, is never just silence. It is a mirror. It is a mystery. It is a weight they cannot carry. They cannot stand stillness because it leaves room for their imagination to run wild. And their imagination always runs toward fear, suspicion, and insecurity. When you choose not to react, when you choose not to fight back, when you choose calm over chaos, they see it as something dangerous. They see it as judgment. They see it as superiority. Your silence becomes louder than any insult, stronger than any retaliation, and in their fragile mind it is unbearable. The human brain is wired to fill gaps. When someone does not explain themselves, when someone does not respond, the brain creates its own stories. For a toxic person, those stories are never neutral. They assume you are plotting. They assume you are looking down on them. They assume your silence is proof that you are stronger, wiser, or better. They cannot accept the possibility that you are simply at peace. They cannot imagine that your silence is for your own protection. In their distorted world, silence is war. That's why they lash out. That's why they provoke. They want to break your silence, to drag you into their chaos. Because as long as you stay calm, they feel powerless. They thrive on drama. They need noise. They need reactions to feel significant. And when you deny them that fuel, they begin to suffocate in their own paranoia. Your refusal to play their game makes them believe you are playing a much bigger one. Psychologists call this projection. It's when people take their own hidden feelings and push them onto others. A toxic person who feels judgmental assumes you are judging them. A toxic person who feels manipulative assumes you are manipulating them. A toxic person who feels small assumes you are looking down on them. They live trapped inside their own assumptions. Your silence doesn't create their fear. It only exposes it. And this is why silence is such a powerful weapon. Not because you intend it to be, but because it is misunderstood by those who cannot handle it. To someone secure, silence is peace. To someone toxic, silence is punishment. And that difference reveals everything. Healthy people do not need constant reassurance. They do not need explanations for every action. They can respect space. They can honor boundaries. Toxic people cannot. They need constant attention. They need control. They need to know what you are thinking because the unknown terrifies them. But here's the strength you must carry. Never feel guilty for your silence. Never feel pressured to explain yourself to people who twist your words anyway. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is mastery. It is the refusal to feed chaos. It is the refusal to fight battles that don't matter. It is the choice to protect your peace rather than prove your point. And while they misinterpret it, you know the truth. Your silence is not emptiness. It is power. Think about the greatest storms. They begin with silence. Think about the strongest leaders. They don't speak constantly. They choose their words carefully. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the control of it. And when toxic people cannot handle that control, they reveal who they are. They reveal the depth of their insecurity. They reveal the fragility of their ego. They reveal the chaos they are trying to hide. The most dangerous thing you can do to a toxic person is nothing. Not revenge, not argument, not exposure, just nothing. Because nothing leaves them alone with themselves. And that is the one thing they cannot endure. Your silence forces them to face the voice in their head they have been running from. Your calmness forces them to hear the noise of their own chaos. Your refusal to respond forces them to realize they have no control. And that realization destroys them far more than any words ever could. But silence also requires strength. It is not easy to hold back when attacked. It is not easy to stay calm when provoked. It is not easy to walk away when every part of you wants to defend your name. Yet that restraint is what separates the strong from the weak. Anyone can scream. Anyone can insult. Anyone can fight fire with fire. But only the powerful can stay still, unshaken, untouched, while the storm rages around them. So the next time they misinterpret your silence, remember this. Their fear is their own creation. Their assumptions are their own prison. Their anger is their own reflection. You are not responsible for the way they twist your peace. You are not responsible for the way they misread your calm. Your responsibility is only to yourself, to guard your spirit, to protect your mind, to keep your strength intact. Let them call you arrogant. Let them call you cold. Let them call you mysterious, distant, or superior. None of that matters. What matters is that you remain centered. What matters is that you remain untouchable. Because silence is not about what they hear. It is about what you choose not to give. And when you choose not to give them your energy, your words, your reactions, you win a battle they don't even understand. They don't fear your words. They fear your silence. Because in silence, their illusions collapse. In silence, their insecurities scream. In silence, their fragile ego faces the truth. And when you walk away without a word, you show them the one thing they can never control, you. They don't hate you because you are kind. They hate you because your kindness is untouchable, and that means they cannot control you. For a toxic person, control is everything. Their world is built on power games, on making others bend, on pulling strings behind the scenes. They feel safe only when they can predict you, manipulate you, and own your reactions. But the moment you choose to act from your own strength, the moment you choose kindness without fear, peace without permission, silence without apology, you break their grip. And nothing terrifies a toxic soul more than realizing they have no control over you. Control is the drug they live on. They feed off emotional reactions. They test boundaries just to see if you'll flinch. They provoke conflict just to prove they can get inside your head. They want you defensive. They want you angry. They want you desperate to explain yourself. Because as long as you react, they are winning. But when you stay calm, when you choose your own pace, when you refuse to give them the reaction they want, their power collapses. Suddenly, they are left with nothing to hold over you. Psychology calls this the illusion of control. It's the belief that one has influence over things they actually don't. Toxic people cling to this illusion like it's oxygen. They exaggerate their role in your life. They convince themselves that your happiness depends on their approval, that your peace depends on their behavior. And when your actions prove otherwise, when you move with independence, when you give no space for manipulation, their illusion shatters. They don't just lose control of you. They lose the very lie they built their identity on. That loss breeds hate. Your refusal to be controlled looks like rebellion to them. Your boundaries feel like disrespect. Your self-respect feels like arrogance. But in reality, all you're doing is protecting your space, your energy, your spirit. You're choosing to live on your terms. And because they cannot own that, they try to destroy it. They twist stories, they spread rumors, they use guilt, shame, and blame, anything to pull you back under their influence, because the idea of you living freely without their chains is too much for their fragile ego to bear. Here's what you must understand. Toxic people don't just fear losing control over you. They fear losing control of themselves. When they cannot dominate you, they spiral. They feel small. They feel powerless. They feel exposed. And instead of admitting that weakness, they project it onto you. They accuse you of being cold. They accuse you of being selfish. They accuse you of changing. But deep down, it is not about you. It is about the storm raging inside of them. And this is why your greatest strength is not in fighting them. It is in standing unshaken. Because every time you remain calm, every time you refuse to react, every time you hold your boundary with quiet strength, you remind them that their control is an illusion. You remind them that you belong to no one but yourself. That realization terrifies them, but it frees you. The fear of losing control makes people dangerous. They will try to provoke you harder. They will push, test, and attack with more intensity. Because they believe if they just press the right button, you'll finally break. But here's your power. Remove the buttons. Heal yourself so deeply that nothing they say or do can trigger you anymore. Build such strong boundaries that manipulation slides off you like water. Cultivate such inner peace that their chaos feels distant, irrelevant, powerless. When you master this, you don't just take control back. You become uncontrollable, and being uncontrollable is the highest form of freedom. It means no one's opinion can define your worth. It means no insult can poison your spirit. It means no toxic game can trap you. You walk into every room untouchable, and that presence commands respect without a word. Some will admire it, some will envy it, some will hate it, but none will control it. So when you notice their hatred, when you feel their bitterness, remember this truth. It is not your kindness they despise. It is not your silence they fear. It is not your boundaries they resent. It is the power you hold when you refuse to be controlled. Their fear is a reflection of their weakness. Their hate is proof of your strength. Let them lose control. Let them spiral. Let them misunderstand. Because every time they fall apart trying to cage you, you rise stronger, freer, and more untouchable. That is the gift of walking away from their games. That is the beauty of refusing to be owned. And that is the silent strength that makes toxic people tremble. They don't hate you because you are cruel. They hate you because you are free. And there is nothing more terrifying to someone who thrives on control than a soul they cannot bend. They don't hate you because you've done them wrong. They hate you because your very presence exposes the insecurities they've been hiding from the world. Insecurity is the seed of all hatred. A person who is secure, who feels whole inside, does not need to tear others down. But a person who feels small will always try to make others smaller. They wear masks, they pretend to be strong, they perform confidence, but beneath it all lies fear, the fear of not being enough. And when you walk in with quiet strength, when you carry kindness without apology, when you show resilience without shouting, it magnifies everything they lack. Instead of admiring you, they resent you. Instead of learning from you, they fight you, not because you wronged them, but because you remind them of what they are not. Think of it like a mirror. When you smile, when you give, when you forgive, you hold up a reflection they don't want to see. They see their bitterness next to your compassion. They see their pettiness next to your patience. They see their selfishness next to your generosity. And the mirror feels cruel. So instead of facing themselves, they attack the one holding the mirror. They attack you. Psychologists call this projection, the act of throwing one's own hidden flaws onto someone else. The insecure person cannot admit their own weakness, so they label you weak. They cannot face their own pride, so they accuse you of arrogance. They cannot accept their own envy, so they call you fake. Their hatred is not a statement about who you are. It is a confession about who they are. And this is why kindness is so often misunderstood. When you love without condition, insecure people see manipulation. When you forgive easily, insecure people see judgment. When you walk away quietly, insecure people see superiority. They are not reacting to you. They are reacting to the story their insecurity is telling them. And no matter what you do, that story will twist your actions into threats. But here lies your silent power. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their acceptance. You don't need to lower yourself to prove your purity. Because the truth is, you could live perfectly, speak perfectly, give perfectly, and they would still hate you. Not because of the details of your actions, but because of the discomfort of your presence. You remind them of their unfinished battles, their unhealed wounds, their hidden fears. Insecurity is a prison, and toxic people are trapped in it. They wear chains of comparison. They measure themselves against you, not to grow, but to justify their bitterness. If you succeed, they feel like failures. If you rise, they feel left behind. If you stay strong, they feel weak. And because they cannot bear that contrast, they turn admiration into resentment. It is easier to hate you than to heal themselves. It is easier to label you as the problem than to face the truth that they are drowning in their own self-doubt. This is why you must not shrink. Too many people shrink themselves to soothe the insecure. They dim their light to avoid envy. They lower their voice to avoid conflict. They minimize their victories to avoid jealousy. But all this does is feed the cycle. The insecure never feel satisfied. The more you shrink, the more they demand. The more you bend, the more they push. Their insecurity is a bottomless pit, and you cannot fill it by betraying yourself. So instead, you must rise anyway. Shine anyway. Be kind anyway, because your job is not to heal their insecurity. Your job is to stay true to yourself. When they hate you for your strength, let it be proof that you are strong. When they hate you for your kindness, let it be proof that your heart is still intact. When they hate you for your silence, let it be proof that your peace is louder than their chaos. Their hatred is not your burden. Their insecurity is not your problem. Remember this, insecurity is loud, but it is fragile. It screams to hide its weakness. It attacks to cover its fear. It hates to avoid healing. And in the end, it always collapses under its own weight. But you, if you stay rooted, if you stay kind, if you stay strong, you will still be standing long after their hatred burns out. So the next time you feel their resentment, don't take it as rejection. Take it as recognition. Recognition that you carry something they wish they had. Recognition that your strength is undeniable. Recognition that your peace is real. They may never admit it, but their hatred is proof of your power. And the most powerful thing you can do is keep walking forward, untouched, unshaken, unstoppable. They don't hate you because you are wrong. They hate you because you are a living reminder of what they are too afraid to become. They don't hate you because you're cruel. They hate you because you refuse to be controlled. Boundaries are the quiet lines that protect your soul. They are invisible walls that separate your peace from another person's chaos. And nothing frustrates a toxic person more than realizing they cannot cross those lines. Because toxic people don't just want access to your life. They want ownership of it. They want to drain your energy, take your time, and twist your emotions until you no longer belong to yourself. But when you stand firm, when you say no without apology, when you walk away without explanation, you remind them of a truth they cannot bear. You are not theirs to break. The silent power of boundaries lies in their simplicity. You don't need to shout to set them. You don't need to fight to defend them. You don't even need to explain them. A boundary is a quiet declaration: this is who I am, and this is what I will not allow. It's the refusal to be used, the refusal to be manipulated, the refusal to be dragged into battles that do not belong to you. And because toxic people thrive on control, they interpret this refusal as rebellion. To them, your boundaries are insults. Your independence is disrespect. Your self-respect is arrogance. But in reality, it is freedom. Here is the psychology behind their anger. Boundaries expose insecurity. When you set limits, you tell them they are not as powerful as they thought. You take away their ability to twist your emotions. You cut off their access to your energy. And because their ego depends on domination, your boundary feels like a wound to their pride. They don't hate the wall you built. They hate the weakness it reveals in them. And yet, boundaries are essential for survival. Without them, kindness turns into exhaustion. Compassion turns into self-sacrifice. Love turns into slavery. You lose yourself in the process of pleasing others. And the people who take advantage never stop taking. Toxic people do not respect what you give freely. They respect only what you protect. That's why the moment you start saying enough, they suddenly notice your strength. But setting boundaries is not easy. It requires courage to say no when you've been taught to always say yes. It requires strength to walk away from people you care about but who harm your peace. It requires wisdom to recognize the difference between helping someone and being used by someone. Boundaries feel uncomfortable at first, but in time, they become the shield that keeps your spirit unbroken. The silent power of boundaries is that you don't need to argue about them. You don't need to convince anyone of their fairness. You don't need to defend them to people who benefit from crossing them. A boundary is not a debate. It is a decision. Toxic people may try to twist it. They may guilt you, shame you, or paint you as the villain. But their reaction is not proof that your boundary is wrong. It is proof that your boundary is working. Think of the strongest trees. They don't survive storms because they bend to every wind. They survive because their roots are deep and their boundaries are clear. Your life is the same. Without roots, without limits, without lines that say this is mine, you get swept away by every toxic storm that enters your life. Boundaries anchor you. They make you steady. They make you unshakable. And here's the paradox. The very people who hate your boundaries will also secretly respect them, because deep down everyone respects strength. They may not admit it, they may resent it, but they feel it. Your refusal to be manipulated forces them to see you differently. You are no longer an easy target. You are no longer a victim. You are a fortress. They may hate you for it, but they cannot ignore it. So never apologize for your boundaries. Never soften them to make others comfortable. Never abandon them to avoid conflict. Because the moment you give in, you teach people that your lines are negotiable, that your peace is for sale, that your soul can be rented. And once you teach them that, they will never stop testing you. Stand firm. Hold the line. Let them call you cold, arrogant, or selfish. Better that than broken, drained, and lost. Boundaries are not walls that shut people out. They are doors that protect what matters most. They filter who deserves to stay and who must leave. They separate the real from the fake, the healthy from the toxic, the safe from the dangerous. Without them, you lose yourself. With them, you reclaim yourself. So the next time someone resents your boundary, remember this. Their reaction is not a sign you are cruel. It is a sign you are free. And freedom always looks like rebellion to those who want control. Let them hate. Let them misinterpret. Let them twist your strength into weakness. None of it matters. Because at the end of the day, your boundaries are not for them. They are for you. And when you protect your peace with silence, when you protect your energy with distance, when you protect your worth with limits, you become untouchable. That is the silent power of boundaries. You don't just survive toxic people, you rise above them, stronger, calmer, and more unbreakable than they ever imagined. They will twist your truth. They will mock your silence. They will paint you as the villain. But the strongest souls are not the ones who are understood. They are the ones who have the courage to be misunderstood. Most people live their lives chasing approval. They bend their truth to fit expectations. They dilute their power to avoid judgment. They sacrifice their peace just to be accepted. But when you dare to live authentically, when you stand for something higher than comfort, you will be misunderstood. Toxic people especially will not tolerate your strength. They will twist your kindness into weakness, your silence into arrogance, your independence into betrayal. And here lies the test. Will you shrink back to be understood? Or will you rise unshaken to be yourself? The courage to be misunderstood begins with emotional intelligence. It means recognizing that people's reactions to you say more about them than they do about you. Psychology shows that projection is one of the mind's favorite defenses. What someone accuses you of often reflects their own hidden fears. If they call you selfish, it is because they fear you will not serve their endless needs. If they call you arrogant, it is because they cannot accept your refusal to bow. If they call you cold, it is because they resent your strength to detach. Understanding this truth gives you freedom. You stop wasting your life trying to correct lies. You stop begging others to see your intentions. You stop explaining yourself to those who thrive on misunderstanding you. Toxic people hate clarity. They want you tangled in their confusion, endlessly proving your loyalty, explaining your motives, defending your every step. This is how they control you. But when you stop explaining, when you allow them to misunderstand you and still remain silent, you break their chain. You show them that your peace is more valuable than their perception, that your truth is not up for negotiation, that their opinion is powerless against your reality. And yes, it will hurt at first, because we are wired to crave belonging. Our brains associate rejection with danger. To be misunderstood feels like exile. But here is the paradox. The more you embrace being misunderstood, the freer you become. Because real belonging does not come from being accepted by everyone. It comes from being authentic with yourself. You will lose fake acceptance, but you will gain unshakable self-respect. The courage to be misunderstood is also the courage to stand alone. Not forever, but long enough to realize that solitude is not weakness. It is power. Toxic people want you to fear being alone because that fear keeps you compliant. But once you sit in silence, once you walk alone and still feel whole, you become untouchable. You discover that the one approval you truly need is your own. And when you master that, no opinion, no lie, no smear campaign can shake you. Think of history's strongest figures. They were all misunderstood. Their courage was mocked. Their vision was resisted. Their character was slandered. Yet they stood firm. And in time, the very things they were hated for became the very things they were respected for. Greatness is never understood in the moment. It is only recognized in hindsight. Your life is no different. The traits toxic people despise in you today will be the same traits others admire tomorrow. This is why you must not lower yourself to win approval. If you shrink to fit their view of you, you lose the very thing that makes you powerful. If you water down your truth to be accepted, you hand them control. If you silence your strength to be liked, you betray yourself. And nothing destroys the soul faster than self-betrayal. The courage to be misunderstood is not about arrogance, it is about alignment. It is about choosing truth over perception. It is about valuing peace over popularity. It is about protecting your energy from those who cannot handle your authenticity. You don't need to fight their lies. You don't need to prove your innocence. You don't need to chase their understanding. You need only to stand quietly in the strength of your truth. And here is the final secret. Being misunderstood is often the greatest protection you can have, because those who twist your name reveal their true nature. Those who walk away because of lies were never meant to walk with you, and those who stay despite the noise prove their loyalty without words. Misunderstanding separates the shallow from the real. It saves you from wasting your soul on people who never deserved it. So let them call you selfish. Let them call you arrogant. Let them call you cold. None of it defines you. None of it limits you. None of it breaks you. The only thing that matters is that you do not call yourself those things. Hold fast to your truth. protect your peace, and stand tall in silence. Because in the end, the ones who dare to be misunderstood are the ones who leave the deepest mark on this world. Not because everyone accepted them, but because nothing could break them. They want their hate to break you. But you can take their hate and turn it into fuel that makes you unstoppable. Hate is energy. It may come to you in the form of rejection, betrayal, gossip, or envy, but at its core, it is still energy. And energy is never wasted. It is transformed. The people who hate you are handing you a gift without knowing it. They are giving you the fire you need to rise higher. They are giving you the resistance that forges strength. They are giving you the storm that shapes your calm. You do not grow strong in comfort. You grow strong in opposition. And hate is the sharpest form of opposition. Psychology reveals that humans are wired to respond to hate with either fear or fight. Fear makes you shrink, hide, and question yourself. But fight makes you sharper. It makes you determined. It makes you build where others hoped you would collapse. The difference lies in choice. You cannot choose who hates you, but you can choose what to do with their hate. You can let it poison you, or you can let it power you. Toxic people want their hate to weaken you. They want it to make you doubt yourself. They want their words to echo in your mind until you surrender. But what they don't expect is for their cruelty to become your motivation. Every insult can become fuel to work harder. Every betrayal can become fuel to rise stronger. Every attempt to break you can become proof that you are unbreakable. The hate that was meant to destroy you can become the fire that transforms you. This transformation begins with silence. You don't fight hate with hate. You don't need to scream back, argue back, or prove them wrong. You simply let their words fall while you rise higher. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is the space where you take the energy they gave you and turn it inward. You let it push you into discipline. You let it push you into growth. You let it push you into mastery. While they waste energy talking about you, you are building. While they obsess over you, you are evolving. While they hope to see you fall, you are preparing to soar. Turning hate into fuel requires emotional intelligence. It means not taking their words at face value, but understanding the psychology behind them. People hate what they envy. They hate what they cannot control. They hate what they secretly wish they had. When you see hate for what it truly is, a mirror of their own insecurity, it loses its sting. It no longer feels like an attack. It feels like confirmation that you are living at a level they cannot reach. And that realization transforms pain into pride, rejection into resilience, and hate into hunger. But make no mistake, this path requires strength, because hate will test you. It will make you question whether the fight is worth it. It will tempt you to give up. But you must remember, diamonds are formed under pressure. Steel is forged in fire, and strong souls are built through resistance. Every time hate pushes against you, it is shaping you. Every time someone doubts you, it is daring you to prove them wrong, not to them, but to yourself. The secret is to channel the energy forward. Don't let it eat you alive. Let it drive you alive. Use it to wake up earlier. Use it to sharpen your mind. Use it to discipline your habits. Use it to grow beyond recognition. Let every ounce of their hate become a brick in the fortress of your strength. In time, you will see that the very people who tried to break you were the ones who built you. Not because they supported you, but because their resistance gave you no choice but to become stronger. And here is the paradox. When you turn hate into fuel, you not only rise, you silence them. Because nothing frustrates a hater more than seeing you thrive. They want to see you broken, but instead they see you building. They want to see you bitter, but instead they see you glowing. They want to see you destroyed, but instead they see you untouchable. Your success becomes the loudest response. Your growth becomes the sharpest revenge. Your peace becomes the ultimate proof that their hate was powerless. So let them hate. Let them whisper. Let them mock. Their words do not define you. Their rejection does not stop you. Their envy does not weaken you. Every ounce of negativity they throw at you is energy. And energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. The choice is yours. Will you let it burn you, or will you let it fuel you? Turn their hate into discipline. Turn their betrayal into strength. Turn their envy into hunger. Because in the end, the ones who rise the highest are not the ones who are loved the most. They are the ones who turned hate into power.